I didn't properly actually introduce Dawn. She is True to Form Training, right? True to Form Training?
True to Form Training.
On Instagram. And her specialty is destroying dudes. That's what she does. She destroys dudes.
Usually in the areas where I'm working out, it's always big weights, so the free weight area, the tracks, so the little turf area. And it's a lot of men there. There are some women there, but I take great pride in being able to do things that men can't do. Like pull-ups, I'll put you under in some pull-ups. I'll put you under in some pistol squats. But there is a part of me that when I see someone lifting weights or doing lunges and I can go over there and grab 20, 30 pounds heavier and knock out the same movement and it's easy, I take great pride in that.
Okay, let's dive into a little controversial subject then. So how do you feel men... Obviously, there's a difference in strength between men and women.
But of course.
So tell me...
Because we're different.
We're built different, right?
We are different.
Physiologically, we're built different.
From hormones, how we hold ourselves, like as far as leverage points go, we are different.
Yes. And so do you feel like in fitness, obviously we can get into the whole female, male in the workplace scenario, which we will, but how do you feel about female, male comparisons to fitness? The reason why I bring it up is because I think what you just described, I feel like it almost like the playing field is a little bit more leveled. Do you know what I mean? In the sense that, and that type of stuff, like, yeah, you're probably, I don't want to say never because you're magically strong. You're never really going to bench press 500 pounds, right?
Correct.
And most females can't do that. That's for predominantly a male sport. There's obviously some super strong female power lifters. But I think what you're saying, like the mobility, the push-ups, like you would smoke most dudes. Easy money, baby. I put my money on Dawn, 100%.
If you want to win, you will. If you want to win, you will.
We were actually talking about racing, having like a race outside. You
like a foot race?
Yeah. Remember we were talking about?
Call the doctor. Get one ready.
We're gonna.
Not for me.
we're gonna do a foot race. But when we were talking the other day, so there's at the gym, there's this assault. It's like an assault bike. If anybody doesn't know what the assault bike is, it's the one where you manually have to push. Mm-hmm. Like you see the boxers using it, you see like the fighters using it, or NFL players who are on the sideline trying to stay warm. Super hard. There's a treadmill version of that, which is the assault assault.
Like a hamster wheel, if you will.
But it's on like a belt. And so it tells you the miles per hour that you're running. And so what did you get it up to the other day? What were you
15.
So here was a question I wanted to ask. She got it up to 15. I can get it up to like right around maybe 14. Do you think this might have just been me thinking the other day, weird questions. Do you think you running at 15 with shorter legs is the same as me running at 14 with longer legs? Do you think there's a difference? Or do you just think running at 14 to 15 miles an hour, doesn't matter how long or short your legs are? I'm obviously not in this genre.
Are we talking leg limb, like differences? That's what you want me to focus on?
Like your smaller legs at let's say even 16.
But I'm thinking about my vagina and how heavy that is.
Okay.
And how like that prevents me from like being super strong in the gym and like doing pull-ups and like running really fast.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think my vagina weight would hold me back from the sprints because you as a man have more testosterone and you're going to produce faster. So, like, if I think, like, the length of my legs, some people are better runners. But you and I are not runners. We would just be running for the sake of running. Yeah. And so, like, if we're talking from, like, an athlete standpoint, leg length is totally going to play a difference.
So you think somebody, I guess what I'm saying is you think somebody running at a slower mile per hour, longer legs could keep up with somebody running at a faster mile per hour with shorter legs? Or do you think mile per hour is just mile per hour, doesn't matter how long your legs are? I was thinking about this the other day. It's a weird question. I don't know.
I think how far are we going? Because different
whatever a normal
distance, I think, will change.
Now I want to get back to the weight of your vagina, because I'm really interested in how the weight of your vagina impact. As I think the vagina. As a matter of fact, we're really getting down to it. I think having a vagina would. I feel like it would help you in running. You know what I mean? Because it's just like an easy peasy split apart sort of scenario.
There's no
we're carrying
resistance.
We're carrying
no wind resistance.
Yeah, we got weights. Like there's weights. They jiggle.
Yeah, but I have generational weights.
That's true. Like genetic?
No, because I'm a woman.
You're a woman that can
I'm
run.
a woman.
Yeah.
So
So
I'm going to take it back to something that then because I can tell you don't know what I mean.
Got it.
So like I have been lifting in the gym my whole life, and it's primarily a male dominated place.
Yes.
The people who work there, the people that go there, and certainly where I am at the gym is where more men are. I have had countless men tell me that I can do pull-ups because I weigh less.
Okay.
Or you can do pull-ups because you weigh less, or because you're young. But I always bring it back to literally women can do 0 pull-ups.
In general, I think
In general, women
very hard for
0 pull-ups or 0 to like 3. There are, of course, the outliers that can do large amounts of pull-ups.
Yes.
But I mean, you're harnessing that skill and you're like cultivating it over years. But that's one thing I started saying. Oh, well, you could just do pull-ups because you're light. Yeah, but what about the weight of my vagina holding me back from all of the pull-ups I can't do?
Got it. I see what you're saying.
And so the thing is I'm
Vagina's
just,
heavy is what she's saying. The
yeah,
vagina.
I mean, it's heavy. It comes with a
Generation of heaviness,
line.
a lineage of
Weight.
genetic.
Yeah.
Weights. I get what you're saying.
So I think if we're looking, and we can really get down into some topics if you want, but I mean, if you're looking at faster, a man or a woman, man is going to be faster than you.
Yeah.
If you're a trained woman, you can pull it out. Of course you can.
Yeah.
Of course. Absolutely.
They're super fast.
But I mean, let's not fool ourselves. There are big differences, and hormones play a big role, and how in tune you are with your body plays a big role,
Yeah.
and how trained you are. Like, have you been training your whole life, or is this new to you? Because if you've been training a long time, so throughout high school into your early 20s, 30s, physical fitness is going to be easier for you into your later years.
Yeah.
Whereas you're plucking people out of their 40s, asking them to do these things. Most people aren't going to be able to do much.
Without having some foundation.
Correct.
Yes.
So, like, do I think that 15 miles per hour compared to 14 miles per hour, you're splitting hairs? Because it's also, how long are you going? How many rounds are you doing? And what did you do before that?
Okay.
So if it's just like you and I getting on sprinting, I bet it'd be pretty close.
I think there's 2 sides to PEDs, not PEZ. PEDs. PEZ
Candies.
dispensers. So PEDs, performance enhancing drugs, have become quite commonplace.
Correct. And by the way, testosterone is one of those too. So I'm going to say that they're not, because yes, it is.
I consider TRT, testosterone, on that same level. Obviously, there's differences in like what you're taking and how much you're taking.
Sure.
And so I do think that's a problem. And it kind of even goes back to business. The stuff that you're seeing on the internet is like not always real. And the stuff that these like business gurus are putting out, and the stuff that you see like, oh, buy my program, I'm going to make you a millionaire. These dudes, and females too, a lot of them, that are selling these coaching programs and are super jacked, they're not honest with their audience and say, this is attainable, but it's only attainable by this level. I'm not taking away any of their dedication, because I don't care what PEDs you're taking.
You still have to work out. You still have to eat. That's the thing, is like, yes, with performance enhancing drugs, you still have to put the work in.
Yes.
You're still eating. You still have to go get your workout.
I would say a significant level.
If anything, it's more, because now you're on a regimen of this drug.
Yes.
However,
But the facade is that they're not necessarily acknowledging that this is in addition to their really hard regimen. And so I think like in business, you see all the Lambos and you see all this stuff, but it's like, is that really real? What are you doing to get there? And also, are you, using these other things? I'm all about, I think I'm maybe, I don't know what your opinion of, I know you all are all natural. I think if people want to use PEDs, use PEDs. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
I think like the transgender thing, you have an unfair advantage now.
Of course.
So I think they should make specific leagues, if you will, or categories that are like, cool, this is a PED category. People in this category,
to be fair, they do.
And stuff they do.
Yes.
They don't do that in traditional sports. It's no PEDs. All these dudes are PEDs. They just have ways to mask it now, right? And they always have.
One of my favorite things is when people will say, "Oh, yeah, I have, but it's been a really long time." Okay, well, if you've run any amount or any cycle, that has given you help and a stepping stone and growth to get to where you are. So you might not currently, and you might currently be natural.
Yes.
But it's how did you get to that point?
A lot of
There's a lot of smoke and mirrors.
and I was just going to mention that because a lot of people be like, I'm natural, but they were on TRT last year, or they were on TRT a couple years ago.
Yes.
So the argument you're saying is once you've used something, you could never say that you're natural again.
That, in my opinion.
That's fair. That's a fair opinion.
So in my opinion, yeah, once you have
like saying that
something has helped you enhance whatever you have, you now have a running head start.
Okay.
Because if you've used something to help put on a bunch of muscle automatically is going to make your metabolism go up.
Yes.
And it changes how your body reacts to certain things. So if you're on something and you're big into fitness, you're then going to continue working out for the rest of your life. So that gave you the head start because now you're continuing. If you just took something and
you lose it, do you think you could lose those gains? Do you think
you can lose any gain?
Do you think it's easier to get them back?
If you're using
without, let's say you use testosterone or steroids, whatever the case may be, you get those gains, then all of a sudden you get lazy and you've lost those gains. Do you then think now the playing field is level, or do you think they could get those gains back easier?
That's a good question.
I mean, I know there's muscle memory, right?
There is muscle
I would say,
but that's more on movement than it is for like size, because the muscle will always ebb and flow based on strength and pressure. It's all about tension and pressure. And so when it comes to like steroids, are they still working out?
I mean, there's a lot.
Right. There's so many variables that I think your body will remember and get back as strong as you were when you were on. No. But I do think if you got off and then, if you got off and got lazy, I mean, then now but how long is lazy?
Yeah.
How long is off?
How long? Yeah.
Because if you've been on for 15 years and now you're off for 3 months, you got 15 years.
And I would say most people I think that are using PEDs in general are not people that are just going to go back to sitting on the couch watching TV. Right. Like, so they're probably already working out. They're probably already into some level of fitness. But back to sort of the original point that we were getting to, which is a lot of these people on the internet, you've seen someone come out lately, like Liver King was a big one that just came out within the last year where it was obvious this dude's on steroids. I mean, that's super obvious to anybody who's in that space. It's very obvious too, right? But then to like be like, no, I'm not, or no, I'm not using. It's like, well, let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
I'd rather, again, I have no problem with PED use, but be real about it. And then, but that's hard too, because then there's a fine line in between what are you promoting, right? Like to younger audiences, younger people that are watching you. I see a lot of young dudes now that are super jacked.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know they're taking PEDs at a really young age. You know what I mean? So like, is that perpetuating?
Wait. It's a big game of waiting. Give them about 15 years. We're going to see shit falling apart right off.
Yes. That's why I think the TRT, I'd rather see people do it like that through a doctor, prescribed, whatever the case may be.
Sure.
Rather than just going out and getting stuff, taking steroids without some sort of supervision. I mean, if you're going to do it right.
Right.
Like, that's the way I look at it. And it's like,
I'm not again. People want to do whatever they want to do. Yeah. But at the end of the day,
just don't perpetuate a myth that you're...
Are we trying to do this, like, better the trajectory of our life for years to come? The whole purpose of this is to be stronger and better for the rest of our life. And what we're doing is we're like clubbing ourselves with enhancements that gives us a lot of results right now. And then it's like fall apart time when we need it most.
I think that's a good point. My question to that, though, is that I would argue maybe that's more overuse, because I do think that you can use those PEDs in a moderate way to promote longevity as well.
Sure.
I don't know if we have long-term evidence to suggest that at this point, but it would be of my opinion that you can take PEDs in moderation to help improve longevity. I think the point that what you're making is these young dudes who are stacking PEDs right now at like 15, 16, 17 years old before they've even really fully developed. Those people in the future will see the ramifications of those choices potentially. Yeah. I think it's very real, for sure.
And for me, it's not even about those people. Whatever, you made your choices, do what you have to do. But it's we're all looking at you on Instagram. We see what you look like. You look incredible.
Yeah.
We think if we do the same things you're saying to do, that we can look like that. The problem is it doesn't let you see what is actually real. And a lot of women take steroids too, just so they can stay lean. and have that lean mass, because the mass is dependent upon how much you're eating.
Yeah.
And steroids really taps into recovery. So you recover quicker, so you can lift more and more often, and so on and so forth. And so for me, my big issue with it is we're all looking at it, and most people don't know what they're looking at. I know what I'm looking at, but you see all these people online, they have all these followers, and they're showing you all this fitness stuff, and it's because their tan's right, the angle is right, the lighting looks good, and they've been on performance-enhancing drugs for whatever time. So yeah, maybe they are doing those things, but you are going to find that if you do the same things that person's doing, you're not going to look anything like.
And again, I don't have a problem with it. The problem I have with it is if you're like selling a program, right?
Yeah.
If you're like, hey, buy my program, you're going to get these results. They're not going to get those type of results because they're not doing the same things you are. If you're real about buy my program and take these PEDs,
Yes.
you can get
Yes.
to this level and then let them make that decision, right?
Also, I'm bronzer number 7. And when I put that on, if you can't tone it, tan it.
That helps. That definitely helps.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of definition with lighting. You can create a lot of effects. I think foundationally, though, that is the problem with social media probably a lot right now, is that there's a lot of people out there, and I see it even in business, that are perpetuating things that they don't necessarily have, which would be in my mind equivalent to perpetuating being this super fit person without using these assistants.
Sure.
It's kind of the same thing. You're promoting yourself as this person that you may or may not be without this, and so it's kind of just, I think that's why I really like putting out real content right now, and just showing, like on this last project I did, I can't tell you right now, but I don't think I'm going to make any money. You know what I mean? But I'd rather be real with that, because everything else is like, oh dude, I just bought this and I made $1 million. And I think people see that and they get this, it's kind of like what we talked about earlier. They get this false idea of what it takes to get to a certain level. Mm-hmm. And everybody wants, and I'm guilty, everybody wants this instant gratification.
Of course.
And so, and I think the social media generation has very much so perpetuated that, because we've seen from the onset of these younger people becoming successful super fast and starting to think that that's realistic, to the YouTubers and TikTokers and people now that are on the internet making money that way. There's also still a really big grind behind that. Like my daughter.
Oh, there for sure.
Now the thing is that you kids now, which is super cool, a job opportunity for them now is I want to be a YouTuber. I want to be somebody famous on the internet. But I think what they see is the finished product again, but they didn't see the work. And even like me creating the content that I do, it takes a lot. It's a lot of work. You're consistently coming up with content, coming up with ideas, filming, going out and doing stuff. And so the
editing, putting it together. What do you want to say? There's a lot that goes into it.
Well, again, like it's like kind of that under the iceberg scenario where you see the iceberg above and you see nobody sees the work on it below. And there's a lot that goes into that. Same thing with fitness. Same thing with starting a business. I totally forgot what we were talking about. I got off topic. What were we talking about before that? Social media and just kind of perpetuating like a false idea of what the reality of the situation is and what it really takes to get to a certain level. And even when you're at that level, either the I don't want to say obstacles, but the things that end up pulling you back, and you have to kind of recover from, in your case, maybe injuries, like fitness. And, but anyway, I forgot where we were going with that.
Well, in dealing with people one-on-one, like with this being my full-time job. So like I'm seeing people one-on-one, I'm hearing their goals, I'm hearing where they're falling short. And one thing is people come in with their Instagram queued up and they show me pictures.
Yeah.
I want to look like this. I want to do this. Yeah. And I'm like setting expectations all day long, because a lot of things can work. A lot of variations of exercise can work for people. It's finding the one for you, but it is the expectation of you're not going to look like these people because these people have a camera crew.
Yeah.
The tanning people, they're on some sort of pen.
Yeah.
And so,
and they're working out 4 hours a day.
And that's also part of it.
Super clean.
Right. So you really got to understand that it's years.
It's really like a normal person. That's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Meal prep for a normal person, really hard to do. getting to the gym for all people is really hard.
And I'm like, that's one thing. How do you do it? I've built my whole career around it. I feel so much passion in it, so much love for helping people that I have built my career around what brought me so much joy. But for you, the gym is a hobby. For me, it is not a hobby.
Yeah, it's my side hustle.
This is, I always tell people, like, don't get your hobby all confused with my career. Because people will throw hobby at me about the gym, and I'm like, okay, but I do this all day for a living. And how do you make time with brand new baby? You have a relationship, you have all these businesses. How do you make time and then keep it?
I think
Years.
it has been
Years and years that you have held on to a fitness routine.
but it has been years. I think for me, fitness, I talked about this yesterday. I think fitness for me is more, I think the older I've got, the more I've realized that fitness is more about mental health than physical health. So I think that mental health piece for me is so important. And kind of, I've made that my place that I don't really let most things interfere. So when I say that, we joked around about answering the phone. I mean, I'm still very connected, but it's the one place that I don't let anything get in the way of. So like if I have real estate deals, if I have meetings, if I have clients that want to see things, I typically, selfishly, I'll schedule it around my work, around my gym schedule. Everything, looking at it like that, everything around my day is sort of built around my gym schedule. So I have a time that I traditionally go to the gym.
I like that.
And nothing, for the most part, invades that time completely. Now, something's invaded a little bit, so I get there later, maybe potentially than I wanted. Sometimes I go earlier but it's nice. As an entrepreneur, it's nice that I have the flexibility to do whatever I want to do, so I can build my schedule around. And that's important to me, which is fitness for longevity, right? So
sure.
I joke around, I want to live to be 127. I think that's for real possible. Like, I mean, I know that's kind of like funny for people to hear, but I think I'm 43. I think in the next 43 years, essentially, I'll be 86.
Yeah. We just got started then. If that's what that means, we just got started.
On the technology, don't you think in another 40 years, like what does technology look like in 40 years? I think that's unbelievable what's possible. What we've accomplished in the last 40, technology is exponential. Sure, it was like exponentially. So another 40 years arguably will be maybe like another 4,000 years, let's say. And so what's possible? I don't know. I think with modern medicine, I think if we take care of ourselves, that was something I did want to talk about too. I feel like we're so fortunate to live in a time. You were born in the 80s. I was born in the 80s. I think that was the time where everything was kind of becoming and I'm super grateful to be a kid of the 80s. But that's where like food started getting poisoned. And that's where pesticides and all this other started being used in our agriculture. Yeah, all our they started figuring out rapid production, economy, profits over people. And so I think we grew up in a time where that really was the focus. We didn't know any different. I mean, I grew up TV dinners. My mom was feeding, I mean, she was a single.
Lunchables.
Yes. Like
that was the jam.
The grossest of foods that you would never eat now, right? Like we grew up on that. That was like delicious. Hamburger Helper. I used to love Hamburger Helper. Like things that I would not feed to my dogs now. You know what I mean? We grew up on that. And so that like chemical food and like all that stuff that we grew up on now, kind of we're talking about social media. I feel like social media has made it where now our eyes are more wide open.
Yes.
And so now we have access to information, the internet.
Pros and cons, everything.
A big piece of that, the internet. But with that access to information, now I think people are more knowledgeable, making more educated decisions, and particularly when it comes to food. And so I think that now you're even seeing from a business perspective, you're seeing, and I'm almost envious because I would love to come up with something somebody hasn't yet, but you see all these cool new like food products coming out from small businesses, things that are made like by hand, not necessarily by machines and by chemically, made. You can see full food ingredients. And so I feel like we're really fortunate to be in this period of time, where we have this access to information, but not only that access to information, it's almost guiding the public opinion towards better food options. You're seeing restaurants come up now that are
Sure.
food options.
Sure.
Really good food options.
Well, you only know what you know.
You know,
And if you
only know what you know.
right, so I feel like you only know what either the media is telling you or your parents back in the day.
Yeah.
You only know what you know.
Our parents didn't go to the gym.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like they didn't go. I mean, I'm not saying not everybody's parents didn't go to the gym. My mom
did.
legit. She was a single washing up time.
But for sure, you only know what you know. So Instagram and like TikTok and any social media, anything gives you the opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
And increase that. You only know what you know.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing because I've learned a lot.
I learned so much every day. The other day I'm really big on this now. I pretty much only eat meat that is, because I'm a big meat eater, I only eat meat that is grass-fed. And so I learned within the last couple months that there's a difference between 100% grass-fed and grass-fed. So they can say grass-fed,
Sure.
but that just means that the last like couple days they fed them some grass and now they're grass-fed.
It's all worded.
It's wild that they could do that, but had I not seen that on social media, I would have no idea. I would only go grass-fed's grass-fed.
Yeah.
So now I look for 100% grass-fed. I think there's another way they describe it too, like lifetime grass-fed or whatever the case may be. So, but having the access to that information, I think I'm honestly super excited to see what happens over the next like 10, 20 years because of that access to information. I think it's about to get wild.
It already is.
It is wild.
I can barely maneuver a computer.
Well, no.
It's
Let's not discuss Don's technical challenges.
I need a class.
I
I need a computer.
Don's probably 82 in like a...
I'm typing 14 words accurately per minute.
Okay.
It's accurate though. So
She's improved. She's improved her technology skills.
thank you.
Okay, so we touched on the PEDs. Well, we could dive back into that a little bit. Do you want to dive back into that a little bit?
If you want to.
Only because I think that there is a place for it, especially as a dude who's aging. So,
Well, sure.
are you okay on these two? Both these two. I think that there's a place for it, especially as a dude who's aging. Because for me, I've noticed a ton of physical changes.
Sure.
10 years between my early 30s to my early 40s. Definitely not as strong as I used to be. Definitely easier to lose muscle mass.
But of course.
Like energy levels certainly lower. So I got on testosterone at a relatively young age, probably I think it was maybe in my mid 30s. But because I was kind of going through similar things where I was having these weird, this just doesn't feel like myself. I was kind of having these weird feelings of not a lot of energy. And I was going to the gym pretty heavy at that time, still doing all the stuff I do now. Eating progressively better through the years, but still eating pretty healthy back then. And then come to find out that I had low testosterone. And so I went and got it tested, and it was pretty low. For a 30-something-year-old dude, it was, I can't remember what it was, but it was maybe in the 200s. It was really low. And so, but that's also a factor of our environment, right? The food, the things that we're eating, all these outside factors now are impacting hormones. And so I think that there is a place for it as even for females. I mean, I'm not really one to probably be able to speak on this, but I think for males and females, as you get older, I think hormone replacement therapy is important to longevity.
Well, hormone replacement therapy is one thing.
Yes.
That is one thing.
Like we talked
because, women are premenopause. Also, we go through, you guys are 24-hour, which, God, that must be nice.
What do you mean by that?
Men are on a 24-hour hormone schedule.
Okay.
So they flip and you have revamped and you're back good as new in 24 hours.
Yeah, so that we just...
It's 24 hours. Women are on a 28-day schedule. So it's usually 26 to 30, depending upon where you're at, how many days, lots of factors. But we flip over every about 8 to 10 days into a brand new set of hormones that completely affects how our body looks, how we feel, the strength we have, how we're processing food, how we're sleeping. And so hormone therapy replacement, 100%, absolutely. But I also think people are really quick.
True.
People are so fast to need something. People can't wait to buy something. They just want to buy things. I want to buy the ice bath. I want to buy some new shoes because they make me fast, and they do. But everyone wants to buy something. Everyone wants a quick fix.
Yeah.
So yes, do I think there are some cases that absolutely necessary need the hormones? For sure. But a lot of things can be fixed with time, with proper diet.
That's true.
And proper exercise.
A lot of it's diet.
And I say proper because you have to find what works for you.
Yeah.
And that's so different from person to person. And so there's the guesswork. There is absolutely guesswork. And so,
which is part of it.
That's the problem, is you have to spend so much time stabbing in the dark to see what you're actually going to hit.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Because even if you get tested, I have such a problem with the healthcare system. I just feel like they're always so quick to be ready to give you something.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that men don't need it, because if you're low and you need it, of course you need it.
Yeah.
But I know from experience, clients come in and they're like, I'm low and my doctor put me on this testosterone and now all of a sudden they look like bodybuilders. And it just is like, okay, well, there it is.
Yeah.
And that's my issue. Is it necessary at some point in life?
Yes.
For sure. But I think people are too fast to do it. And I think people are too young. And I think people haven't figured out how to do it naturally.
That's true.
And I think that's where one of my, I do say this a lot. It's like beating down the door, but if you want to follow somebody, anyone, it doesn't have to be me, anyone online that like is super into fitness, super knowledgeable, great body, all the things you like, find a woman, because a woman's battling their hormones, they're battling a whole different array of issues, and if they can put it together, they know something.
That's fair.
Not saying men don't, because obviously they do. But I think that there needs to be different eyes looking at things, because you have to start to be able to unravel by looking at it. Yeah. So yeah, as you age, for sure, get your hormones checked, feel the best you can, but also understand there's so much that can be done naturally before you start assisting yourself.
I agree with that. I think a lot of people immediately go to those things you've seen now with like a lot of the weight loss replacement drugs that are coming out. This, the magic sort of, everybody wants a magic pill. I think that's even the case of business. Everybody wants this, like, that's what I find so fascinating that's why I find the similarities between business and fitness so fascinating, because it's the similar response. Everybody wants the immediate result. Everybody wants the successful business right now. Everybody wants the immediate physique right now, but they don't want to put in the work. Like, they don't want to put in the work and so these things now are becoming popular because they work. But, I have noticed a lot that, like, with the weight loss stuff now, there's a lot of like muscle loss. So people are losing like a ton of muscle. And when you start losing muscle like that, yeah, you're losing weight, but are you losing good weight? And so the same thing with the hormone replacement stuff. Nobody told me when I got on testosterone that it essentially nukes your reproductive system. And so you're not producing at all. So if you want to have kids, then now you have to go back and rebuild your reproductive system in a way that is functioning properly. And that took a lot of time. And so had somebody told me that in my 30s, like, hey, this is going to make you feel a lot better, but also here are the potential side effects, or here are the real side effects, which is that it sterilizes you. I would have maybe made a different decision, or potentially would have looked at, well, let's maybe try some diet stuff or something different, And certainly being guilty of, I wanted probably more immediate results. I'd seen dudes at the gym that were on testosterone, and they were, like you said, not necessarily built, but they just felt a lot better. You could tell they just felt, and I can tell you personally, from being on testosterone to not now being on testosterone for a couple of years, you felt really good on testosterone.
Yeah.
Aside from I do think the argument still is there that it takes a lot of work to get that physique.
Of course.
Even with testosterone. But it still makes you feel like a lot better, right? Like you just feel like a younger version of yourself, which everybody's chasing, And so that's why I think it's important as you get older to potentially leverage those things for longevity, but understand abusing them and or taking them too young could have, impact on other things in your life. So,
because all of these things have side effects, all of them. A lot of people don't realize that having extra testosterone in your system makes you more acceptable to cancers susceptible to cancers and how that's going to react to your system. And one big thing is having a lot of muscle mass on your body. If you have to do chemo is going to attack that muscle mass. So you want to have that dense muscle because that's what's going to basically keep you alive. It's going to keep you having some kind of quality of life. And frankly, muscle mass and just fitness is what makes it so you don't get as sick. you don't get as sick as long, or you're not getting the big illness, or God forbid you're mangled up in a car accident and you're like bedridden, you better have that lean muscle
Foundation,
pulling you through. You're going to
you lose it quick.
You're going to lose it quick. And you keep in mind the circulation alone of having muscle on your body is going to keep that circulation going, which then is new blood to the areas where you're healing, which is what we need.
Well, that's why you see these athletes heal so fast from some of these like crazy injuries, because their body is obviously in peak condition, and so it has the ability to heal. Clearly, they have advanced science that they can leverage and use, but I just think it goes to speak that the more conditioned and built your body is, the more benefit it'll have as you get older, especially as you're prone to having accidents or anything like that. The other thing about testosterone people don't tell you too is that it thickens your blood. And so if you have like...
I did not know that.
Yeah, so if you take too much testosterone, you could potentially have a stroke or throw a blood clot,
Yeah.
And I already have a condition where I have too much iron in my blood anyways. So like I have to go donate. I don't have to. I do it electively and it benefits everyone.
Sure.
And then I donate a lot of blood. So that's the only way that you could I don't even say release, but solve that issue is kind of getting blood out of your system. And so I donate a lot of blood, but testosterone makes your blood even thicker. So there's lots of things that if you're not really, if you're just going out and like doing these things without knowing what you're doing, there's a lot of risk there, and even some of these dudes, these professional people that are doing this get injured, like one of the guys that I followed a lot, Joe, I don't know if you know him, Joe Aesthetics. He's like, that dude is like 30 years old, super shredded, like the most beautiful physique.
Yeah.
And he died of a heart attack, you know what I mean? Now,
right.
He got some COVID stuff and that potentially could have been one of the issues, there, but you can't argue that excessive use of PEDs couldn't have been a contributing factor, so.
I would imagine so, yes.
I would definitely say it was a contributing factor. So you just, like anything, you just have to be careful,
Gotta do your research.
And also recognize that there's still a big foundation that goes into getting to that level with business, with fitness.
A decade, 10 years.
Yeah, it takes time.
Like, honest to God, 10 years. 10 years. People ask me, well, Don, how long is this going to take? Years.
Yeah.
Years.
That's how business is too. I think a lot of people, again, see these instant businesses and I've been guilty of it, but I've now recognized I have a really long journey. I've been doing this now 17 years. So I've been on this entrepreneurial journey since 2007. And so, it's like, that's a long time. And even now I look, it's like, I'm nowhere near where I want to be. You know what I mean? I think that's always the entrepreneurial problem of never being content totally with where you're at. I certainly suffer from that.
Sure.
But at the same time, like looking back and realizing you've accomplished a lot along the way, but it's a really slow journey. You know what I mean? Like it takes time. Fitness is the same thing, like that, getting that physique, unless you're, taking things to speed up that journey.
Correct.
There's really, in my opinion, in business, there's nothing you can take that's going to speed up that journey.
You just have
to hit the grind. You know what I mean? Like there are no magic pills, but again, back to it, even if you are using PEDs to try to get to the next level, you're still putting in a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like there's still a lot of work.
There's still the work. You're not going to see around the work.
That's what I'm saying. There's no way you can escape work. And I think you were going to ask me earlier, what are some of the myths in business, potentially in business, I guess.
Yeah.
I would say that's the biggest one, is the myth of this is an instant scenario where you all of a sudden have now created this business and it's thriving and you're taking vacations on an island somewhere and it's running itself. That just doesn't happen that way, And now certainly people out there have had much faster journeys than me.
But odds are.
But in general, I would say that's not the journey most people take, right? And the hard part with this, I think that's what you kind of hold yourself against. I don't know, how do you describe that? But I think that's the problem with even myself. Like I see these people and I'm like,
this is me with you right now. I've been just now in this and you're so established in the business realm. And I come over and you show me all of your information on all of your screens. that I'm just amazed at all the screens.
If anybody that doesn't know, I work above a cockpit. I have a cockpit. It's like a jet with 3 screens.
Well, you have answers to all my questions, and I can answer very few of your questions when you're asking me about my business, even though I should know about my own business.
Yes.
Because you don't have it. That's the time it takes that you have put in year after year to be able to know exactly what's what, and you can name it on a dime.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big takeaway is how much time things actually take.
To figure out too. I mean, like you're sort of you like I said, you're sort of throwing things at the wall to see what sticks, and then over time you realize, oh, that stuck. That was a better spend. That was a better investment. That was a better return on investment. Whatever the case may be, you learn so much along the way. You almost forget more. How does that saying go? I've forgotten more than you know. It's kind of an arrogant thing. I don't mean that towards you, but
right.
Like I've forgotten more than you know. Like you have forgotten more than what most people even know because you've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
That I think of some of the most mundane things in business, but those tend to be really big obstacles for some people, right? So a big one, for example, is like starting your business, like creating the entity. I see like a lot of people get hung up on how do I do that? What do I do? And I was talking about this yesterday when I was recording. It's like people get so caught up in and you can even relate this back to fitness. People get so caught up in the little nuances of these new tricks or how do I do this or how do I do this versus just starting, you know what I mean? And just doing it. And like, once you get that momentum behind you, everything else just kind of starts to fall into place. And I think that's the same with fitness. I think that's the same with business. Business is just getting started and not letting those little obstacles kind of get in your way to stop you from starting.
Yeah.
And then once you start, then the next thing you kind of just tackle and it becomes easier. And then, so for me, I've been on this journey for so long that I almost forget some of those little things. You're probably like you do. Something that's super easy for you in fitness is very challenging for somebody starting out.
For sure.
Right. And something super easy for me in business is very challenging for somebody that's just starting out. And a lot of it is those little things. Like your business is different because you're more custom. I don't want to say it's different, but your numbers are important. Like for me, numbers are really important. Revenue is really important. Income's really important. Expenses are really important. I need to know exactly where my business is at that point in time for the year as far as revenue goes. How much you've spent, how much our net profit is.
You have a lot more detail in yours than I do. However, I should still know. But
I say anybody, the number one thing in business is knowing your numbers, because it comes down to that's how you grow a business. How many clients do I need?
Right.
Charging X amount of money per month to get to how much I want to make per month to be comfortable, right? And so I think that's like scaling anything. You sort of need to engineer it backwards. And then that's also when you have realized lately that your value is more than what you've probably been charging some people, right? And so it's like, as you become more valuable, you can charge more because you create more value.
Well, right, because as time goes by, if you're bettering yourself and like you care about the business, then you're always searching for that knowledge.
Yeah.
And just like anything else, it's not free, and you're paying to better yourself. In certain cases, it's taking certifications for me, or I know you've had to do little things where you have to be certified before you can do. And so those are like the hoops that you just have to jump through. But those hoops almost force you to level up.
Yeah.
Because you get used to what is required.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's like it's taking anything you could do to better yourself, I think, is going to take your business to the next level, which then there's a saying that if you become the best at anything, if you become the best at something, people will pay you unlimited amounts of money for access to somebody that's that good at that one thing, right?
Right.
And so the better you become at something, the more valuable you are to your clients, to yourself, and then you can justify charging more because you're bringing more value to the table.